The 3DS era of Pokemon was one of the most controversial times to be a fan of the franchise. Heading into the next generation of consoles, the mainline Pokemon games were about to have its first game made entirely in 3D. This was both exciting and worrying for fans of the games, especially right after an already controversial set of games in Gen 5. Personally, I was around 10 years old when this era began, making it a foundational part of my childhood. But over the years, I think I've lost touch over just how good these games really were. While I have plenty of fond memories, I have just as many negative ones about these too. So over the past few years, I've challenged myself to play through every single mainline Pokemon game to really see how they hold up. And today, you'll follow me through Pokemon X and Y, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, and Ultra Sun and Moon, to see if the 3DS era of Pokemon was actually good.
Pokemon X and Y were the first 3D mainline Pokemon games, and with that came extreme praise and criticism from the fanbase. Many felt as if the jump to 3D allowed for Pokemon battles to truly come alive with fully animated models and moves. But others believed that this change in style might mean Game Freak was evolving too much and might end up ruining the franchise they once loved. But for me, Pokemon X was just another childhood game. At the time, I had played a few Pokemon games before, but not enough to be super nostalgia blind. In fact, I can't remember having any negative feelings towards Gen 6 as a kid. Over time though, I started to form stronger opinions about this game. I started to feel as if it were the reason for the decline in the quality of recent Pokemon games, and ultimately was just a weak Pokemon title in general. I don't know exactly why I started to feel this way, but it probably has to do with the online community making a lot of content against games in the 3D era of Pokemon. Regardless of all that, I wanted to take a look at this game again as an adult. I had just played through all of the previous regions, and there would be no better time to see how Kalos compares to them. So today, I'm gonna find out if Pokemon X and Y was actually good. The game begins fully showcasing its 3D models, even letting you pick your own skin color this time around. Well, unless you're darker than this, then you're still out of luck. Anyway, you wake up, meet two of your friends in Vanillville Town, and then go through the shortest route one in the game. Once you make it to Aquacord Town, you meet some more of your buddies, and apparently you and them have been sent some Pokemon to start your journey. In this case, I chose Froakie since Greninja is one of my favorite Pokemon of all time. After a quick battle with Shauna, all 5 of us enter Santaloon Forest and make it to Santaloon City. Here we would find the first gym leader, Viola, and defeat her and get our first badge. Afterwards, we would continue as usual until the unthinkable happened. Combee. Yup, I found a shiny, and unfortunately it was a male Combee. So yes, sadly, this will be pretty much useless to us. But despite this bittersweet situation, we would soon reach one of, if not the greatest city in all of Pokemon, Lumio City. This place is absolutely massive, and while we haven't been granted access to even half the place yet, you can feel the aura. The main objective of our first visit here is to meet Professor Sycamore, the man who gifted us our Pokemon. After beating him in a battle, he actually offers us one more Pokemon, but not just any, the Gen 1 starters. I chose Charmander and left to check out more of the city. In one of the cafes, we meet Diantha and Lysander, two obviously important characters, but besides this, there isn't really much to do here, so we move to Route 5, where we meet a gym leader named Corinna and her 2 Lucario, one of which apparently took a liking to our aura. Anyway, we move through the route, evolve our Froakie into a Frogadier, and enter Camphor Town. Once again, there's not much to do here, but shortly past the town, we found a sleeping Snorlax blocking us from progressing. In a nice callback to the first generation of Pokemon, we have to wake it up with the Pokeflute. Unfortunately, the only way to get one is by going to find it at the nearby palace. After battling a bunch of trainers on the way here, we reach the palace and help find this dude's Pokemon. Afterwards, we get a nice fireworks show, which is strangely romantic if you're playing the boy character, and then we get the Pokeflute. With this, we can wake up Snorlax and actually add it to our team. Also, we evolve Charmander into Charmeleon. Now, I know our team seems like it's not exactly filled with new Gen 6 Pokemon, and well, I guess you can kind of blame the game for that. It has so many good Pokemon from older games. Anyway, past the Snorlax is a massive segment of the game where you do a lot of walking. There's There's a bit of a pit stop in Ambret Town, but right after that, you ride a Rhyhorn through the mountains into a very scary cave. I will say though, I do love that the cave was made in this way instead of the typical annoying style. Regardless, this is the place where we first encounter Team Flare. We kick him out with our neighbor Callum and get a fossil from the scientist guy in the cave. We can now leave and go back to our badge collecting. The next city we reach is Silage City, and this actually does have a lot of stuff for us to do. There's a clothes store here, a bike shop, and a gym. After having fun riding the bike for a while, I attempted the gym, and let me tell you, this was a struggle. Not even just because of the difficulty or anything, but more so the sheer amount of trainers. Although I will say that the narrative of this game being easy is getting more and more debunked as I play it. This gym battle was definitely a challenge. Anyway, after beating the gym, I decided to go ahead and catch an Eevee to hopefully one day become a Sylveon. You do this by getting your Eevee's affection level up and leveling it up when it knows a fairy type move. In this game alone, there's a little mini game section called Pokemon Me where you can pet, feed, and play with your Pokemon. After doing this for a bit, I went north towards Geosenge Town, and there were noticeably more Team Flare members around this area. Here we also encountered Corinna again and battled her. Geosenge isn't exactly the most important right now though, so we moved to the next cave area and into Shallower City, the location of the next gym, but more importantly, the Mega Evolution Guru. At this point in the game, we've only heard the idea of Mega Evolution brought up a few times, but apparently Corinna is able to wield it, and now the Guru wants to give one of us a Mega Ring that allows us to use Mega Evolution. However, since there's only one ring, we battle our rival Callum to decide who gets it. We beat him and get the Mega Ring, but we don't actually have any Pokemon that can Mega Evolve right now, so we focus on beating the gym leader Corinna instead. And well, this fight was really hard. We had just evolved our Eevee into a Sylveon, so our team at this point was looking really strong, and yet something about her Hawlucha was just able to destroy us. But after a lot of trial and error, we defeated her and got our third gym badge. With this complete, we're told to meet her at the top of the Mega Evolution place just one more time. Here, she offers us that one Lucario that was taking a liking to us earlier and gives us its Mega Stone. Now we could engage in our first battle with Mega Evolution, Mega Lucario versus Mega Lucario. With our new team member, we could move on to the next route. Here, we finally evolved Frogadier into Greninja and reached Comarine City. We could actually take on the gym relatively quickly here, and we already got our fourth gym badge. Things wouldn't be this simple for long though, since just south of the city, we had a massive desert area that led to the Kalos power plant. The reason why we weren't able to explore all of Lumio City earlier was actually because of this place being overrun by Team Flare. So we go ahead and battle a lot of them and free the power plant of their control. Also, we meet a strange tall dude that clearly is meant to be important, but we'll get to that later. For now, we can finally explore all of Lumio City, and I spent a lot of time here. First of all, I had to get a makeover since we had been wearing the same clothes the entire game. But next, we needed to challenge the gym leader here, Clement. While we were fighting the trainers in the gym, we evolved Charmeleon into Charizard, making our team fully evolved at this point. We beat the gym leader, explored Lumio some more, and then headed on to the next route. Since all of our friends were all together right now, we went to some ghost house tourist attraction thing and then kept it moving to Laver City. This is a really well designed town in my opinion, and it also held the next gym leader Valerie, who specialized in fairy types. We beat her, got our 6th gym badge, and went north to the Pokeball factory which Team Flare had taken over. We beat them all, got the Master Ball, and then headed on to the next route. We make it to Dendamil Town, defeat more Team Flare members, ride a Mamoswine through a snowstorm, and then reach Anastar City. Besides this massive sundial, this place also has the next gym, which we defeat and get the 7th gym badge. Just as I thought we were reaching the twilight of the game, Lysander hits us with the best Eren Yeager impression and tells everyone in the world he's basically gonna drop a nuke on them if they aren't a part of Team Flare. I'm not even trying to add that for comedic effect or anything, that's literally what he wants to do. Naturally, we fly back to Lumio City, find his hideout, and challenge him to a battle. Of course, he doesn't just give up and has us go through his gauntlet of a hideout. Once we get through those 20 battles or something, we finally find Lysander again, and it's with that strange tall man from earlier. This guy starts telling us about some important history regarding a man and his Pokemon. Apparently, there was a war 3,000 years ago where there was a man who would be the first king of the Kalos region. This man had a Pokemon called Floette, and it fought in the war and sadly passed away. The man would not stand for this, and he dedicated his life to creating a machine that would bring the Pokemon back. Eventually, he was successful, but the machine only worked because of the lives he had to take in exchange. While he did end up ending the war, the Pokemon he worked so hard to get back left him because it knew the terrible things the man did. After telling the story, it's clear that he was speaking in third person the whole time, meaning he somehow is some immortal being. Anyway, Lysander flees the base and we're faced with one of the heads of Team Flare, who gives us the illusion of choice by having us press a button that may or may not turn on the ultimate weapon. Whether you pick the right button or not, the weapon will be activated in Geosenge Town and we have to fly back hopefully to stop it in time. Team Flare's base here hosts the legendary Pokemon and we battle Lysander once again to stop him, this time backed by our rival. Once he's defeated, we fight through every single remaining Team Flare admin, which by the way is a ton of battles, and reach the bottom floor. Along the way, Shauna regrouped with us, and while she's not very great at battling, she helps us out by using one of Clement's inventions to open the locked door. Inside are a bunch more of Team Flare's members we have to fight, but then we finally awaken the legendary Pokemon Xerneas. Once we catch it, Lysander makes his way to us with a new suit on and challenges us to one final battle. This time around, he actually has Mega Evolution on his side with his Gyarados, but we defeat him and escape. In one final attempt to make the machine work, he fires the ultimate weapon and hits himself with the blast. Well, after all that dramatic stuff is over, we are finally able to continue our journey to get the 8th gym badge. We make it to Koraway Town and through to the next route. Here we meet our two other friends who had been no help to us when we were trying to save the world and battle them along with Shauna. After this, we reach Snowbell City and get another makeover, but we're really here for the last gym. However, the gym leader is currently away in the Pokemon village, so we go to find him. Along the way, we also caught the final member of our team, Trevenant. After fighting the gym leader and challenging him to a battle, we get our final gym badge and prepare for the Elite Four. Victory Road in this game is honestly one of my favorites. It doesn't force you into a bunch of battles or anything, and while it does take place in a cave, there are plenty of segments outside to mix things up. At the end of Victory Road, we fight Callum one last time and make it to the Pokemon League. Just like Unova, we're allowed to pick the order in which we fight the Elite Four, so I went with Malva first since our team could handle fire types pretty easily. After that, I fought Wickstrom because Steel is also very weak to our team. These two first fights were not very challenging honestly, but I had no idea what was in store for me next. The Water type Elite Four member has one of the strongest teams I have seen in any Elite Four period. Seabold's Gyarados is almost unstoppable if you aren't leveled up properly or have bad type coverage. In my case, I thought Trevenant would be enough, but honestly the only way I could beat this was by brute forcing Moonblast with Sylveon. Last of the Elite Four is Drasna, the Dragon type user, and well, her team is good on paper, but unfortunately I have Sylveon, so... With the Elite Four defeated, all that's left is the champion Diantha. And wow, her team is genuinely awful. This is the worst champion fight I have ever seen in my life. Goodra is probably one of her best Pokemon, but besides that, her Gourgeist sucks, Tyrantrum and Aurorus are just not that great in general, Alucha can be solid, but hers is not built correctly, and Mega Gardevoir is a really good special attacker, but it isn't really that scary when you have something like Mega Charizard X with Shadow Claw that one-shots it. So yeah, while that did kind of end bitterly, we ended up beating her and becoming the champion. Things didn't just cut to credits though, because we got our own ceremony for saving the world and becoming the champion. Well, technically our other 4 friends got celebrated too, but really the only ones who actually did anything were Shauna and Callum. After this, we're challenged by that strange man from earlier whose name is AZ. After the fight, his Floette appears in the sky and returns to him 3,000 years later. And with that, our journey ends.
But we still have the post-game content to get to, and if you're wondering why I sound a little bit different, that's because this is being recorded over a year later, because, well, I originally forgot to play the post-game in this video, so let's get to it. Now, first things first, we leave our house and meet Shauna, who gives us a trade for a Fennekin, but I actually didn't catch anything except for a Xerneas, that shiny Combee I got, and I guess a Chatot? I don't really remember ever getting that, but I traded her that for the Fennekin. Anyway, we have to go to Lumio City, which is going to be a common theme of the post-game, and check out the train station where we get our national decks, and Professor Sycamore gives us a ticket to go to Kilude City, and I guess do something here, cause I don't really think there's much. The main thing here seems to be this battle tournament thing that all Pokemon post-games have, which, I mean, is cool, but it's nothing compared to Black and White 2's. And then we have a battle with our rival in which we win. Now, the next order of business is going to Anastar City, where we meet Professor Sycamore again, and he tells us how we can power up our Mega Ring to, I guess, get more Megas? But now that we have this, we go back to Lumio City and begin the real post-game. This is what everybody knows, this is what everybody loves, the Looker storyline. So Looker ends up calling our phone and asking us to come visit him, and when we arrive, he tells us that he needs some help fighting crime, and he asks us to join his squad, so we join him and tells us we need to do some training first. Unfortunately, this training is a fetch quest where we have to collect these 5 things on the floor all around Lumio City. Now, if you thought Lumio City was confusing in ZA, well, this was the original, and even though it's way smaller, it's still quite confusing. But we eventually end up collecting everything, and Looker actually makes us a member of the Bureau, which is great, and our first mission is to investigate what these kids are doing in back alleys of Lumio City. After searching for about 15 minutes, we eventually find this alleyway where, yes, this is Emma and her Pokemon Mimi. After talking with her for a bit, we basically conclude that she is homeless, so yeah. Anyway, after talking for a bit, Mimi gets scared and runs away, so guess what? Yeah, we have to go find it now. God, this postgame sucks. So yes, we find the Pokemon, do a little dance, bring it back, and Emma is invited to join the Looker Bureau, getting her off the streets. Now, our next mission involves a lady coming into the Looker Bureau speaking Japanese. Obviously, we have no clue what she's saying. Looker tries to pretend like he knows, but he doesn't. But Emma comes in and explains everything she's saying because she can speak Japanese for some reason. I don't really know how, since she was kind of homeless, but regardless, we learn that a gang has been stealing people's Pokemon in Lumio City, so we of course have to go stop them. So we head to the train station, take down these gang members, but we also learn that apparently these guys consider Emma their leader? I guess she has motion in Lumio City or something, but she tells them to give up their life of crime and become honest workers. Emma also worries about Looker's finances, even though he's a part of the international police, which I guess she doesn't know, and she decides to look for part-time work to help him out, unbeknownst to him. But after a while, Looker says that Emma has been running off recently and he's starting to worry, but also that someone broke into the Lumio City Museum last night and vandalized a painting. Of course, we have to go investigate this, so we go to the museum and find out that indeed a painting has been vandalized. Well, anyway, there's a different crime we need to stop, and that is the theft of Pokeballs that have been occurring in the back alleys. Always with these back alleys, man. Looker decides it would be best if we lure the thief out, so we go to one of these alleys and that's what we do. And after the battle, someone in a robotic suit tries to steal our Pokemon, but Looker intervenes, so the suited person runs away, and we actually have to do this like 2 more times, just the same thing over and over. Yeah, I really do hate this postgame. Anyway, yes, after one of the battles, we see Mimi appear, confirming that yes, this is actually Emma, and this is probably why she's been disappearing. It doesn't seem like she's aware of this though, and she identifies herself as Essentia, and then punches Looker and then runs away. Going back, Looker says that he's gonna visit the hospital, and then we take the rest of the day off. After we leave though, Looker talks to Mimi and explains to it that he probably knows who's doing this to Emma, and he asks it to give something to us. But for now, we have a different thing to worry about, and Emma actually calls us into the Looker Bureau herself, and she explains that she wants to see Looker, but she hears that he's in the hospital, and now she's actually worried she needs to get more money to get there, so yeah, looks like she'll be doing more dirty work. But after she leaves, someone else comes in, and this butler guy asks us to battle him for some reason, but afterward he explains that he was a Team Flare admin, and he was sent by his mistress, so we have to go battle her, I guess. Inside this hotel, we can meet Malva. This is an Elite Four member, and I guess she was also a part of Team Flare, which is not really hard to imagine, actually. After the battle, we learn that Essentia is actually Emma, which is kind of obvious, and the suit that she wears is called the Expansion Suit, which is created by Dr. Zarosik. Now, just when you thought that this post-game wasn't bad enough and didn't waste enough of your time, this is actually the worst part of it. So we have to go to Lysander Labs to defeat this Dr. Zarosik guy, and navigating this place just isn't really fun at all. There's nothing redeemable about it. There is a section towards the end where you can learn a little bit about Team Flare and Dr. Zarosik's plan for Essentia, but it's nothing like too crazy. And ultimately we end up fighting Essentia at the end like 4 times, and then yeah, she breaks out of the control, Mimi's here, Looker's here, and after our 4th battle with Essentia, Zarosik just kinda gives up. Like he just gives up really and lets go of Emma. Turns out she was completely unaware of anything that had just happened. She really just thought that she was doing a part-time job that, I don't know, just put her to sleep for a little bit. Like I guess she really wasn't thinking, she just had her mind on the bag. Regardless, I guess everyone goes home happy. Looker makes an arrest on Zerosik, and he takes accountability for his crimes. Now this is pretty much it for the gameplay. We just have a little epilogue here where Emma talks to us and explains that Looker left the hospital and everyone is here waiting for him. Although Mimi enters with a letter from Looker and he confesses that he is indeed a member of the International Police and he's actually leaving the Kalos region now, which is kind of sad. I mean, he took her in and now he's leaving already. But he says he actually bought out the Looker Bureau building, so she can just live here now for free, which is great, right? Except not really, because Emma wants to live with Looker, so she goes and tries to find him before he leaves, and ultimately she actually does catch up to Looker. It's just that he really is leaving. He tells Emma that she is the new head of the Looker Bureau, which she does stay true to until ZA. And Dr. Zerosik, who's also here, gives her the expansion suit, which she also does wear in ZA. And with that goodbye, the main storyline for the post-game is over.
Going into this game, I honestly had a lot of negative expectations. In my mind, Pokemon X and Y were the games that started making Pokemon way too easy and less immersive. But as I played through the game, I started to realize it's not that simple to just say that. Is this game easier than most Pokemon games? Absolutely, but I challenge the idea that it has to be a bad thing. For one, this game is not so easy that it's boring. In fact, I'd say this game has some of the most challenging fights in Pokemon. Karena and Seabold both took me many attempts to beat, even with how good my team was. I would say a lot of the easiness in this game comes from the quality of life changes instead, perhaps the most important one being the EXP share. In previous Pokemon games, you would only be able to get 1 or 2 EXP shares that you gave to individual Pokemon. In this, your entire team gets EXP distributed to them with it, meaning you have to do a lot less grinding. Now, if your idea of difficulty is grinding wild Pokemon battles, I guess I could see why this would upset you. But for me, this saved so much extra time and I am certainly not complaining. Another complaint I hear a lot about this region is how little new Pokemon there are. And you know what? I actually do agree with this. But I can also understand why this happened in the first place. Pokemon Black and White had 156 original Pokemon, which at the time was really unpopular. Despite Black and White 2 offering an incredible amount of older Pokemon throughout the main story, it just wasn't the same. I guess with Pokemon X and Y, they felt like going back to their roots, especially with Mega Evolution. I mean, they didn't even give Megas to their own region starters. They gave it to Kantos. The first Pokemon to Mega Evolve is Lucario, an obvious fan favorite. I mean, they even added a sleeping Snorlax that you can catch using the Poke Flute. It's not hard to see that Game Freak was trying to call back to the original audience they had. So whether or not you think that's a good or bad thing, well, I guess that's all subjective. Personally, I don't mind it too much, but I definitely wish there were more new Pokemon as a whole. The final big piece of criticism I want to talk about is the blandness of the game. A lot of people want to say how the towns in this game don't feel very unique, and I half agree. I feel like Kalos is quite lopsided with its culture. On one hand, you have somewhere like Lumio City, which is absolutely massive, but then on the other, you have several towns in the game that look like cookie cutter French village number 46. The core of this game's blandness doesn't even come from the cities or anything like that though, because I think it's more about the overall atmosphere. This game is not very memorable, at least compared to the previous entries in Pokemon. Sure, the music sounds phenomenal, but there are a lot of tracks that aren't really as catchy as they were in previous games. The new Pokemon designs are cool, but I feel like we don't even see enough of them to actually keep them on top of mind. The story at a glance is really interesting, but the build-up realistically is lacking. I mean, isn't it a little strange how we go from challenging gyms to suddenly having to save the entire planet from destruction? It's not that Pokemon hasn't done that before, but in those games I felt like there was an obvious build-up to that point. Lysander is not a villain by any means until the 7th gym where he just decides to go crazy. I mean, I definitely do like the shock value, but that's not an excuse to skimp out on the story or develop any characters. And don't even get me started on Diantha, who literally has no relevant lore and is a Mickey Mouse champion. She does nothing to help you throughout the entire game, which would have been fine if she was a secretly insane champion, but she's not. But anyway, looking back at Pokemon X and Y, was it actually good? Yes, and I think it was better than a lot of us remember. However, it is very difficult to rank it amongst the other games. I definitely feel like it is the worst region up to this point, but at the same time, that doesn't mean it's bad. They did a great job at capturing that European and French style in a lot of areas. I don't know though, it just felt like if this game had one more year, even just 6 more months, it could have been so much better.
Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire are some of the most confusing games in the entire franchise. Coming out just 1 year after Pokemon X and Y, this game had a lot of questions to answer for fans of the series. games. The beginning of Generation 6 was perhaps the most controversial time for Pokemon, as it marked the birth of the 3D era. Pokemon X and Y was the biggest overhaul the series had seen in years, with new concepts like Mega Evolution, the Fairy typing, and a team-wide EXP share. While many people still herald X and Y's contributions to Pokemon as positive, just as many feel as if X and Y took the franchise in the wrong direction, with easier difficulty, over-reliance on nostalgia, and unsightly assets in 3D models. Personally, I liked X and Y quite a lot, especially after replaying it last year, but when Omega Ruby was set to release, there was still so much left for this game to expand on in Gen 6. Many were hoping to see new Mega Evolutions, remakes of the Gen 3 soundtrack with real instruments, and even the potential of the Battle Frontier returning. But when I first played it, I never cared about any of that stuff, and I ended up loving it, so much so that I was actually kinda scared to play it again as an adult. See, last year I played through Pokemon Emerald for the first time, and it is solidly in my top 3 Pokemon games of all time. So what's the problem? Well, I always felt like Omega Ruby was one of the best Pokemon games of all time, purely off of my memory of it. This was a sentiment that I also had for a game like Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and sadly when I replayed that game, I was disappointed. And so after a year straight of playing through all of the generations of Pokemon, I couldn't continue after X and Y. I was just too scared to rewrite the history of my childhood, but as you can see, I'm back. There were just too many questions left to be answered. How far did Omega Ruby push the series despite just being a remake? Was it even a faithful remake to the amazing Gen 3 games? But most of all, was Pokemon Omega Ruby actually good? So much like the original games, we start our journey in a van moving to a new town. And I think it's always pretty funny that they just shoved their kid in the back of a van and then sent them on their way, but regardless, the second we enter Little Root Town, I was blessed by this amazing music. I will try not to talk about the music of every single place we go in this game, but let me just tell you now, I'm gonna talk about it at least a few more times. Anyway, we meet our mom, go to our room, and then meet our neighbor May, who is about the same age as us, and perhaps we could be friends, who knows. Anyway, outside we have to go help Professor Birch, who is being attacked by a Poochyena. This is actually the unique way in this game that you get your first starter Pokemon, and I think it's really cool, because you don't just get it given to you kind of get it, and then he actually gives it to you later. Regardless, we help him out and get our first Pokemon, and I ended up choosing Mudkip because, well, Mudkip is the best starter. But after we save the professor, we actually can just kind of leave town and get started on our journey. The difference between this game and a lot of the other games is that this one has a quite long early game before you reach the first gym. So our first stop is in Oldale Town, and just beyond this we meet May, and she learns that we kind of helped the professor, aka her dad, I don't think I mentioned that, and we battle her. Of course, she chose the superior starter to us in typing because our rivals love to cheat in these early generations. But we quickly beat her and then go back to the professor, get our Pokédex, and then we can officially start our journey. So we leave town with May and make our way to Petalburg, and here is actually where our father is. Yes, we do have a dad in this game, and he is the gym leader of this town. However, we cannot face him yet because he is far too strong. But even though we can't fight him yet, we still say hi and also meet a kid named Wally, and we help him catch his first Pokemon, which of course is a Ralts. On his first try, he finds a Ralts. That's kind of crazy. But besides that, there really isn't much left to do here, so we move on and head to the Petalburg Woods. And yeah, this is your typical Pokemon starting woods forest area, but we also do meet a member of the evil team in this region, Team Magma here, so I guess that's kind of interesting. I really don't like forests like these. It's one of my pet peeves in Pokemon games, but hey, that's what it is. But we made it out the forest and encountered these trainers here, which apparently are double battles. We can't do that though, because I only have a Mudkip. Yeah, I know, I just don't like any of the Pokemon so far, sorry. Right up ahead is Rustboro City, and this is where the game really starts. But first, listen to this music. But in this city, we can fight the first gym leader, Roxanne, and as you can tell by her name, she is a rock type trainer. Therefore, we can completely destroy her with just Mudkip. And with the first gym badge in our possession now, we leave and see that a Team Magma member has stolen some sort of parts from this corporation, the Devon Corporation. Well, we'll get to that later. But anyway, we have to go chase them and get back those parts. On the way there, we evolved our Mudkip into a Marshtomp, who is very ugly. But we chase down the Team Magma Grunt and get back the Devon parts and also save this old dude's Pokemon named Pico. But we head back to the Devon Corporation in Rustboro and give Mr. Stone, the president of the Devon Corporation, his parts back. I still don't know what the parts are, but I mean, I guess they're important. And he tells us to give this letter to a man named Steven in Dewford Town, which is across the ocean. Apparently, we can get a ride from that old dude who we helped save his Pokemon. But we leave the building and May is waiting for us here, which is kind of creepy. But we leave Rustboro and then head across the sea to Dewford Town, where we can go find Steven. I'm not gonna lie, I couldn't really find him, so I just went to the gym to fight Brawly, who is a fighting type gym leader, and he was actually very easy as well, which is kind of annoying. And I'll go more into depth on why a little later, but I just want to make a point now that is going to be brought up over and over again in this video. This game is so much easier than the originals. In my first playthrough of Emerald, I died about 25 times to Brawly, and I had like 3 or 4 Pokemon. In this game, I had just a Marshtomp and nothing else, and I absolutely destroyed this gym. But after the gym, we head to the cave in this town and find Steven looking at some sort of cave artwork and talking about primal mega evolution, something like that. But I go ahead and hand him over the letter we were given and we part ways. And with that, we're ready to continue our journey and we head to Slateport, which is across the ocean again, but fortunately the old man takes us across in his boat. Now this is a pretty big city and we actually encounter a lot of Team Magma members here. In one of the buildings in particular, we find the leader of them all, Maxie, who explains his goals and ambitions for the world. Honestly, he's just kind of a capitalist. Apparently, he wants to expand the landmass of the world as if we don't already have enough, so we can build more buildings? I really don't understand what his goal is here, but yeah. Clearly not a great guy. In other news of Slateport City, we encounter this idol girl named Licia, and she helps us get into the Pokemon contests. These are cool, I guess. I mean, these are just one of the mini games that all these Pokemon games tend to have. I never was a big fan of them, but I mean, I guess they're pretty cool. What is cool about this, though, is that after you complete this little tutorial of the Pokemon contests, you get a free Pikachu that has the ability to cosplay and also get a unique move based on the cosplay they're in. I always loved this, and fun fact, I'm pretty sure this is the only Pikachu with a black tail. But ultimately, we end up choosing the fighting Lucha Libre wrestler Pikachu because it has a move called Flying Press that is both a flying move and a fighting move, and I thought that would be really good coverage. But now we can leave Slateport and make our way to Mauville City, but on the way there, we meet May, and this might be the only time where I actually struggle with a May battle. And honestly, the only reason for this is just because I haven't been catching many Pokemon. I've actually only gotten the Pokemon the game gives you. So yeah, her Grovyle kind of messed my Swampert up. Anyway, we can now move on and make it to Mauville City. So as a big change from the original games, Mauville is not outside. This is actually completely an indoor city, almost like a shopping mall. And actually, I kind of like it. I know some people might not like it, but I think it's kind of cool they made such a big change, even though they could have just remade it normally. Now there is a gym battle here, but first Wally wants to fight us. But he has one Pokemon, and it's a Ralts. I don't really understand the purpose of this fight. I feel like I'm just kind of beating up on a kid for no reason, but yeah, we obviously destroyed him. But shortly after, we go to fight the gym leader Watson and obtain the next gym badge. Now after this, we do reach a point in the game where there is a lot of routes until the next gym. We see that Team Magma has some plans for Mount Chimney, and it can't be good considering who's on the cover of the game. Anyway, we progress and do a lot of battling. But while the battles can be a little tedious, they're really no problem. The real issue is all of the HM use that's required to progress in this game. And sure, my Marshtomp can learn pretty much all the HMs you need to know at this point in the game, but I don't want to teach him that. I want him to teach him moves that are good. So unfortunately, if you see a Pokemon on my team that looks like it's not doing anything, but it is also doing something, but I'm not acknowledging it, that's because it's an HM slave. I mean, you can't really avoid it in these Pokemon games. You really can't. But then we reach one of my favorite routes in all of Pokemon, Route 113. I'm not gonna lie, I prefer the original Gen 3's version of this route. I think just the pixelation does it a lot more justice. Even though this feels more realistic with the ash particles, in the originals, I thought it was snow. And then I learned that it was ash and I was like, wow, that's really cool. And also the music is amazing. I just think the original song was a little bit better of a vibe, even if it's not technically better. One of the very rare exemptions from this game not having a better song than the original, because the soundtrack for this is phenomenal. But at the end of this route, we make it to Meteor Falls, and here a professor is being harassed by Team Magma. Apparently they want some sort of meteorite from him. Also here is the Team Aqua people, but I don't really know if they explained much about them. They just kind of act as a resistance against Team Magma, but they're also not good people. I don't know. It was kind of weird how they did the evil teams in this game. Anyway, we beat Team Magma, although they still take the meteorite from the professor and go to Mount Chimney. Oh, and May is here, who also helped us battle, which I guess is cool. I mean, she wasn't really much help, to be honest. Actually, no, I lied, because after the battle, May teleports us to Mauville City instead of us having to walk back. So that is actually a W addition to this game, that you don't have to just walk back. Anyway, our next mission is to tail Team Magma to Mount Chimney and find out what they're trying to do. At the top of the mountain, we find Maxie, who is explaining that he wants to resurrect some slumbering giant to further his plan of enhancing the land mass of the world. I don't know, it's stupid. We destroyed him in battle because we have a water ground type Pokemon, and he is like fire type, so. Oh, and I almost forgot to mention we caught a Swablu. I don't know why I forgot to say that, but we did. Maybe I forgot because it doesn't really do much until the end of the game. This thing's moveset is horrible. But for some reason, he gave us a meteorite, and we can move on to the next city, which is Lava Ridge. And guess what? It's Flannery. And what Pokemon type does Flannery use? Fire. And what type does Marshtomp destroy? Yeah, we got the next gym badge. But yeah, after this battle, we can get teleported via May back to Petalburg, which is where the next gym is. Again, great quality of life change. I mean, I'm really glad we didn't have to walk back, because that's really far. And you know, I was really hoping that this gym would be difficult, because I remember in Emerald, this was a pretty tough fight. I mean, it wasn't impossible, but it was tough. How do I put this nicely? I'm starting to get really upset at this point of how easy this game is. I know it's a kid's game, but dude, it's like not fun to just destroy every gym without thinking. And Norman is one of the most hyped up gym leaders in any Pokemon game, because he's literally your dad, and you can't even face him at the beginning of the game because you're too weak. And you reach him and he's just so nerfed. I don't even know how to explain it. Like, his team, it should be OP, and it's just not. Also, we have Swampert, so this isn't a common problem I have in Pokemon games where things are just too easy. I feel like there is a decent struggle in a lot of different scenarios where I have to try a gym a couple times. In this game, it's just been wash after wash, every single gym. But after this upsetting victory, which is kind of funny to say, I needed to soothe my nerves and calm my anger. So I decided to pay a visit to the now available Verdanturf town. Now, there isn't anything here. Like, there's literally nothing here except for maybe a few items and NPCs, but the music is truly one of my favorite tracks in all of Pokemon. But the time for relaxation is now over because we have to move on to the next town. Using the new HM Surf we've obtained, we can head on to the next route and meet up with Steven, and this is a Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire exclusive. But in our conversation with Steven, Latias appears out of nowhere and asks us to come fly with it somewhere. So we get taken to this island and Latios is here and also some Team Magma people. Honestly, I don't really know if they explained any of the reasoning behind as to why this even happened, but yeah, you basically just get a free Latios. Or a Latias if you're playing the other version. I mean, I guess this is cool and you could Mega Evolve them, but I don't know, did they really need to just give this to you for free in the middle of the game? But moving along, we make it to the Weather Institute and Team Magma is here causing trouble again, I guess. We learn more about their plans to resurrect Groudon, and we basically just do nothing here except for fight a bunch of Team Magma members. But after we clear out the place, May is waiting to battle us, and she was easy pickings. Yeah, she is not very good of a trainer at this point in the game, not gonna lie. But we make it to the next city, for Tree City. Now there is a gym here, but we actually can't go to it yet. We need to go up ahead a route and meet Steven, who gives us some technology to see these Kecleon. Now that we have the ability to go to the gym, we go to battle the gym leader Winona and easily obtain the next gym badge. Now there's a pretty big route ahead of us, but when we make it to the end, we go to Lily Cove City where we meet May, and she battles us again. She's pretty much exactly the same as the last fight, and apparently afterwards she got mentally so boomed that she just retired. Now there's not really anything for us to do here quite yet, so we actually have to go to Mount Pyre, which is south of the city. Yeah, apparently Team Magma's causing trouble here or something, I don't know. Now apparently this is like a vertical cemetery, kind of like the Pokemon Tower in the Kanto region, and we do a lot of battling here, which I never really understood. Why are we battling next to all of these gravestones? I don't know how smart that is. Anyway, along the way to the top, our Swablu finally evolved to Altaria, which is great, and we see at the top of Mount Pyre, Team Magma is here. Apparently, Maxie wants to take this red orb to resurrect Groudon, and he leaves the other blue orb here, which I guess we're just allowed to take. But regardless, he said he's going to try to take the submarine in Slateport City, and I guess do something with it, so that's our next destination. But first, I want to actually go catch another Pokemon for our team because we're looking a little grim right now. And I decided on Mega Mawile because, I don't know, she just has aura. And there's actually one more thing we need to do. Since our cosplay Pikachu can't evolve, we kind of need to make it stronger with a light orb, which is pretty easy to find. And yeah, this just doubles our attack stats. So while Pikachu still can't really take much of a hit, this thing can actually hit like a truck now. But with our new and improved team, we can finally take on Team Magma and figure out what they're trying to do. So first, we go try to stop them from taking the submarine, but they end up doing that, and now we have to follow them to their base really close to Lily Cove. So we fly there and enter their base, which has a lot of enemies and a lot of these annoying portal things, which kind of rage baited me sometimes, but we made it to the end where we fight some people and easily beat them because Swampert is OP, and they take their submarine and leave. So unfortunately, after wasting our time, we can just move on to the next city and continue our gym journey. Moss Deep is across the ocean, so we got to do some surfing, but it's all right. We use some max repels, fight some swimmers, and yes, we make it to the next gym. And you know how I've been mentioning the difficulty of the game every now and then? This gym really just sent me. It just sent me over the edge, and it really upset me with how incredibly pathetic Tate and Liza were. I distinctly remember in the original games in Emerald, Tate and Liza were like a jump of difficulty, for me at least. I walked into this battle, pressed 2 buttons and I won. Tate and Liza have 1 Pokemon each, and they're both weak to the same thing. Really? 1 Pokemon each? They couldn't give him like a Xatu or something. It's just sad, man. But anyway, we get the gym badge, and the second we walk out the gym, there's a massive earthquake. We talk to Steve, and he's basically like, all right, man, you gotta figure it out. good luck. And he gives us the HM dive. So now we have to go find Team Magma, presumably. We head to the seafloor cavern, which I guess is where Team Magma went. And yeah, once again, lots of Team Magma members, lots of HM usage. But at the end, we find Maxi, and he has finally found Groudon. But he wants to battle us first, even though it really doesn't matter, because he just ends up summoning Groudon anyway. And one thing I will say very positive about this part of the game, if you remember Pokemon Emerald, when you got to the point where these Pokemon, the legendary Pokemon, were getting summoned, there was a very ominous shift in the energy of the game, and they did keep that vibe. When you leave this area and go to the surface after Groudon starts to make everything insanely hot, it's actually scary. The music is terrifying. Everybody's like, bro, it's over, we're gonna die, like everything is gonna be turned to dust. And honestly, like, I really liked this. This is really where this game starts to kind of go its own way in terms of making its own identity. This whole time, it's pretty much been a remake made easier and with Mega Evolution and sometimes like new gifted Pokemon. This point in the game is the start of my favorite part of this so far. At least when I was a kid, I really liked this part of the game. Anyway, Steven tells us pretty much that we have to go to Sootopolis City, which I actually discovered on the way to the seafloor cavern, but I didn't say anything just because there wasn't anything to do there yet. But now we got to go there and figure stuff out. So we arrive, I think this is the Cave of Origin, and there are a lot of people here. There's Wallace, Steven, the Team Magma guys, the Team Aqua guy. I mean, even May is here. I don't know how she got here. I thought she gave up. But yeah, she talks to us, calls us her best friend ever. And then, yeah, Team Magma's basically, oh, we're so sorry, man. We had no idea this would happen. Yeah, all right, bro. Anyway, they give us their Magma suit and just tells us, good luck, kid. Go save the world. So we enter this cave and meet Groudon, and then it goes under Primal Reversion, something like that. I think that's what it's called. It's a really cool form. I really like this form. But yeah, we put a stop to its tyranny, and the world is saved. But yeah, when we leave the cave, everyone's waiting for us. They're like, oh my god, dude, nice, man, you saved us. And after everybody leaves, May is there. We have a nice little chat, and then something really, really cool happens. So Steven actually gave us this Eon flute, and just look at this. I mean, I can't even describe how sick this is. Dude, when I was like 10 playing this game for the first time and I got to this part, my mind was blown. I had no words for what I was seeing. In a Pokemon game, this is an unprecedented moment. I mean, flying around the region, the music, encountering different legendaries. This is something that I don't think any Pokemon game has come close to until like Scarlet and Violet maybe. But even then, like this ability to just fly around the region, and yeah, this is truly one of the best moments in Pokemon games ever. But after we have a little fun with that, we do kind of actually have to continue our Pokemon journey, and that includes defeating Wallace, who is the gym leader of Sootopolis. And for some reason, he is actually kind of a hard battle. I mean, I still won, because my team is just kind of really OP, but like, he was pretty well built in terms of, he had 5 Pokemon, and his type coverage was not bad at all. So yeah, random jump in difficulty here. I don't know what happened. They just decided to lock in and make Wallace difficult. Perhaps it's alluding to the fact that he is like a champion level trainer, but I don't know. And you know, at this point, I was thinking to myself, I should probably catch a 6th Pokemon for my team. Now, I didn't really know what to get, but then I remembered my Emerald playthrough, and I used Blossom. I don't know if anyone else likes Blossom, but this is one of my favorite Pokemon of all time. So I went ahead and caught a Gloom, turned it into a Blossom, and it was a part of my team. Now, let me warn you, it's not gonna do much. It's very underleveled. But hey, at least it's here. But yeah, we surf to Evergrande, and let me tell you, this is not much of a city, but really we just make our way through Victory Road and into the Pokemon League. But wait, actually, before we go into the league, we have a battle with Wally, who after not appearing forever, decided to come back, and he has a real team. And by a real team, I just mean he has a cool battle theme, and his team gets wiped. yeah, he still sucks. But he had a Mega Evolved Pokemon, which is pretty rare, so good for him, I guess. But yes, it's time for the Elite Four. We've been waiting a long time for this, and now we can challenge them. Let's see if it's easy peasy or just as hard as Wallace. All right, I gotta be honest. I went into the Elite Four, made it to like the 4th guy, but I forgot to buy any items. All right, let me try that again. All right, the first member of the Elite Four is Sydney, and he uses Dark-type Pokemon. This guy was kind of more of a challenge than I thought it would be, but if we're just smart with our Pokemon, we can beat him pretty easily. Next up is Phoebe, and she uses Ghost-type Pokemon. We actually do have pretty good coverage for Ghost types though, and Mega Mawile made his debut in battle, and dude, this Pokemon just has so much aura, man. But we beat Phoebe and move on to the Ice-type Elite Four member, Glacia. Once again, Mega Mawile is gonna get a lot of use here, just because of the steel type advantage, and also our cosplay Pikachu is pretty good here because of Flying Press, which is a fighting type move. We just had to make sure not to use that move on Frostlass because of the ghost type advantage that she has. Now the final member of the Elite Four is Drake, and he has dragon types. Now you would think he'd be quite the challenge, but we actually do have plenty of coverage for this. We just gotta be smart with the moves we use and the Pokemon we use against them. Now with the Elite Four beat, we have one challenge ahead of us, Steven, one of the most feared trainers in all of Pokemon. Now the Elite Four is pretty freaking tough, but this guy, well, he's actually pretty tough as well, but nothing crazy until his last Pokemon, Metagross. This guy, when he Mega Evolves, is the most terrifying Pokemon I think I've ever played against. This thing makes Cynthia's Garchomp look like child's play. We cooked Steven's team up until this guy, and he almost reverse swept us. But that being said, we beat Steven and become the champion. And sorry to break your immersion, but what is this line of dialogue? I felt an excitement in my breast when we first met. Like what, why? Why would you, what is he? But anyway, May comes to congratulate us, and we move on to the Hall of Fame room, and we officially become the champion and cement our legacy in the Hoenn region. And well, here the credits roll, and of course, if you've played these games before, you know this is not the end. While most Pokemon games do have a post-game, this is perhaps the most narrative-focused post-game until, well, we started getting DLCs in the future. Anyway, this was really cool to see, the Delta episode that is, so let's quickly go through this adventure and let me give you my thoughts on it. So the Delta episode starts off with us learning that there is a meteor approaching Earth, and if it collides with it, it will destroy all of civilization. Now we have to be honest, that's kind of crazy, but yeah, it's a pretty cool storyline, I guess, anyway. But we go back to Little Root Town, and we go outside and see that there's this girl just kind of walking around. I don't really know. This is Zinnia. Now we go see our neighbor, and apparently she slammed into May and robbed her keystone. Why would you do that? So we follow her because now we really gotta spin for May. That's just messed up, man. May's just a kid. But when we're going to look for her, we found out that she actually robbed our friend Wally as well. What the hell, dude? But Steven gives us a call and asks us to meet up at the Devon Corporation, and then we meet with his father. He explains the asteroid situation to us and tells us that we need to collect these meteorite shards to stop the asteroid, I guess, because they need the energy. He also explains some backstory, also similar to Pokemon X and Y's backstory with AZ. I really like that they made this call back to the previous game. It really makes it feel like the whole world is connected. So to get this meteorite shard, we have to go to the Granite Cave in Dewford Town, and in here we find Zinnia again. She has a little battle with us, and then she gives us some sort of talking to about our ideals and motivations. I don't really know. Anyway, Steven asks us to come back to the Space Center because there's not much time left. When we arrive, Zinnia also comes to the Space Center and explains that our plan is actually terrible and abominable and inhumane and all these bad things. Doesn't really explain why, but yeah, she kind of just scolds us and then leaves. Anyway, the plan currently is to create a warp hole with this energy and teleport the asteroid away. But we do need one more shard, so we're asked to go to Meteor Falls to get it. At the end of the cave, we meet this old lady and Steven, and apparently she's a part of some ancient race called the Draconids, who are the keepers of lore in the region. Now apparently this chaotic event is actually a pretty common occurrence in history, where a world-ending tragedy is about to happen, but then Rayquaza is summoned by a lore keeper and saves the world. And apparently Zinnia is now a part of this race, so she's stealing the keystones in order to summon Rayquaza up. Now after this, we can go back to the Space Center, is what I would say if we didn't have to waste like 30 minutes fighting random Team Magma members who all suck, but all have individual battles. It's just, I'm sorry, this is one part of the post game I just hate. Just so many battles for no reason. But when we actually get back to the Space Center and defeat these Team Magma guys for the 17th millionth time, Zinnia appears and explains why our plan to teleport the asteroid away is actually terrible. And this is a really big moment for the Pokemon lore, but she says that when we create the wormhole, let's say we teleport the asteroid away. Sure, our world might be fine, but it would get teleported to a different timeline, and that timeline would have to deal with the asteroid about to hit their planet. But the difference is that that timeline doesn't have the power of Mega Evolution, so they can't even stop it if they wanted to. This explanation as for why some Pokemon games never had Mega Evolution is really cool, and it's a cool way of not retconning the entire franchise, but actually expanding it so there's more lore now. Anyway, we have to go to Team Magma's base for some reason. I genuinely don't remember why, but we do, and when we reach Maxie and his friend, they get robbed. They get robbed for their keystone, just like everyone else has. And now we have to go to the Sky Pillar where Rayquaza is meant to be summoned. When we arrive, Wallace is waiting to battle us in front of the place because he wants to test our strength. Inside, we meet Zinnia, where she gives us some lore as we climb the pillar, and at the top, she summons Rayquaza. Now at first, it doesn't have the ability to Mega Evolve, but that meteorite that was in our bag the entire journey starts to resonate with Rayquaza, and it is able to Mega Evolve now. But first, we have to catch it. And actually, it's not that bad. There is a boosted catch rate on this fight specifically, so we're able to catch the Rayquaza very easily. Now, with Rayquaza's Mega Evolution in hand, Zinnia asks to battle us, and this battle theme is one of the best songs in gaming. The only problem is, well, it kinda ends as soon as you fight because Mega Rayquaza is the most busted Pokemon ever. It's such a shame, man. This is such a cool battle, but I feel like letting us use Mega Rayquaza and she didn't have really any answer for it. I mean, I don't know if that was the best design. Now, as the owner of Rayquaza, we can take a flight into the sky with the Magma Suit on, of course, and destroy that asteroid. But when we do, something was inside the asteroid, and it's Deoxys. And as cool as this battle is, it ends pretty fast, and we finally stop the asteroid and save the day. Now we get a couple scenes seeing what the major characters in the game are doing now, and well, we have our last scene with May, and we have a little date at the Space Center, and well, that's the end of the game. Honestly speaking, I went into this playthrough with such a fond memory of Omega Ruby. This was one of my foundational childhood games that I played non-stop, and coming off of my recent playthrough of Pokemon X and Y, which I actually really liked, I was expecting greatness from this game as well. If I'm being real, it's much more of a mixed bag. First and foremost, the difficulty levels. Up until the very last few hours of the game, this was perhaps the easiest Pokemon game of all time. Not only do you get to choose from some busted starters, but you also get a free Pikachu with amazing type coverage and the ability to make into a beast later with Light Orb. Then you get a free Latios or Latias, which is a legendary already that can also Mega Evolve. But even if you didn't get these insane gift Pokemon, the battles themselves are incredibly easy. It feels like no one has more than 1 or 2 Pokemon on their team, and if they do, they're under-leveled or have poor coverage. I mean, sure, there's a power spike at the very end of the game, but I mean at that point, you probably have Primal Groudon available to you along with some legendaries via the Eon Flute. It's pretty ridiculous, especially considering how they didn't even give us the Battle Frontier in any way. There's also the major issue of HM usage in this region. I feel like this pretty much speaks for itself, but throughout this run, I was required to use 5 HMs and strongly encouraged to use up to 7. Like, why, man? Also, some people like to criticize the amount of water in this game, but honestly, it's not that bad. The issue is that the water itself just looks kind of hypnotizing, and not in a good way. It's just the same kind of tile over and over again, which usually wouldn't be a problem in a 2D game, but since it's 3D, it just kind of looks tacky. But enough with all the bad stuff, because there is still a lot to love about this game. First of all, the music is arguably the best in the entire franchise. I personally think that the Emerald soundtrack was perhaps the most cohesive because of the consistency of the instruments while still being very diverse within the region. And when they made the jump to live instrumentation on the 3DS, I think that almost every song here sounds far better than the original, with some exceptions of course. Not to mention some great remixes and Aura's original tracks as well. As for the story, I think they did a great job at the end. The teams themselves are pretty underdeveloped in my opinion compared to Emerald, but once Groudon or Kyogre is summoned, I feel like the stakes become super high and it is actually really engaging. I just wonder how much better it would have been if the original story for Emerald was adapted in the remakes. The stuff with the Delta episode was really cool though, and I like that Rayquaza was still heavily involved in the story of these games. The bonus Deoxys at the very end was also sick. I genuinely have nothing bad to say about the Delta episode except for the fact that there was a string of useless battles in the middle bit of it, which felt like it was just trying to pad out the time of the game. But besides that, all of the lore with the multiple timelines and Zinnia was awesome. The other post-game stuff was nice as well. This is one of the first Pokemon games to allow such an incredible amount of easy access to legendaries of the past. Just a shame that the Battle Frontier was not present at all. Overall, the Pokemon Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire games are good, but they don't really come close to my enjoyment of the original Pokemon Emerald, and even Pokemon X and Y for that matter. I don't know if less effort was put into these remakes because they were made around the same time as X and Y, but to me it was disappointing to replay. I think the reason my nostalgia was so strong for this game specifically had a lot to do with the fond memories of the music, the awesome new Mega Evolutions, and the sick ending hours of the gameplay. Ironically, I went into the 3D era of Pokemon expecting to hate Pokemon X and Y and love Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. Instead, it's sort of the complete opposite. Going into Gen 7 with Pokemon Sun and Moon, I'm hoping to have my expectations blown away again, because I have never liked the Alola games. I hate Pokemon Sun and Moon. Or at least that's what I thought for almost a decade. And the reason, well, these games made one of the biggest changes we've ever seen to the Pokemon franchise, the removal of the 8 gyms. In every single mainline game prior, we've had to go through 8 gym leaders and the Elite Four to become the champion. But in Sun and Moon, they decided to change that. Replacing the gyms would be trials taking place on 4 separate islands inspired by Hawaii. These trials would be similar to gyms in the sense that you still had to win a challenging battle at the end of them, but there would usually be extra steps involved to get there. When they first announced this, I was so incredibly against the removal of gyms that I didn't even play the game for like 2 years. And you know, I was having too much fun with Gen 6 anyway. But when I did finally make my way to Gen 7, I hated it. I don't even know why. I just remember not having fun at all. So for years, I carried this mysterious hatred for Sun and Moon, stating it was the reason for the downfall of Pokemon. But almost a decade later, I decided to play through all of the Pokemon games again, and well, here we are. This time, I decided to go through Ultra Sun instead of the originals because there are improvements on them in almost every way. And so, without further ado, it's time to find out whether or not Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon are actually good. The game begins with a Zoom call from the professor of the Alola region. He shows us what the region looks like and explains that there are a lot of Pokemon here just like any other region. We then get to pick our gender and name. I'm gonna go with the female character because I really like the fashion options in this game for the girls. But then we see a cutscene with some girl running away from people. We don't know who these people are. So yeah, anyway, the title card pops up and we finally see our house in Alola. Apparently, we moved here with our mom and Meowth from the Kanto region, which is a pretty cool backstory. Anyway, we leave the house and try to make our way to Iki Town. However, we are attacked by a Rockruff, but it's okay because the starters of the Alola region come to save us. We then meet Professor Kukui, or Kukui? I don't know how to say this name. This is gonna be a consistent theme throughout this video. But he basically tells us that we can keep one of these Pokemon, and we go with, of course, Litten, because Incineroar is the GOAT. Although I will say the other starters are very, very good in Alola. This might be my favorite generation of starters, actually. But we go on ahead and meet Hau, who apparently is also starting his journey as a Pokemon trainer, and he picks Rowlet. After a little battle, we make our way to the town and go up to the Mahalo Trail. Here, we see the girl from the start of the game cutscene, and and follow her up to this bridge. She has this Pokemon that we've never seen before, and it gets attacked by some Spearow. She's not a trainer, so she asks us to help her. So we try to battle a Spearow, but there's just too many of them. So this little creature decides to explode everything around it, including the bridge, and we fall to our doom, except the guardian deity Tapu Koko saves us from our fall. The girl introduces herself as Lily and explains that this Pokemon Nebby is hers, and I guess not supposed to be known about. She also gives us this stone that says belongs to us, but I mean, I've never seen that before. I don't know what she's talking about. Anyway, we make our way down the mountain, explain the situation to the professor, and meet the kahuna of this island, Hala. Oh, and a kahuna is basically just the leader of an island, and they're chosen by the guardian deities, which in this case is Tapu Koko. We also learn that Lily is the professor's assistant, and we get our Pokédex. That's pretty much all we need to do here though, so we go back home, and then we begin the very, very long intro sequence of the game. So almost 30 minutes into the game, we're finally starting to catch Pokemon, and on the first route, we find a Pichu, which is a very rare encounter, and I got it on like my third encounter, which is crazy. Additionally, we learn of a new concept called regional forms. This is when a Pokemon has a different type and appearance based on the region that it's in. Alola was the first game to introduce this, and honestly, I still love this. I've actually had a great experience with this game so far. Things are looking bright. But on this route, we meet these weird alien people. I don't really know. They're not normal. But in the town tonight, there's a big festival going on, and we have a celebratory battle with Hao, who also caught a Pichu. That's pretty cool. After the fight, Hala gives us this G-Shock watch and explains that we can basically ice it out if we get these Z crystals that can bring out the Pokemon Z power. The professor then tells us that we can finally start our island challenge. So we say our goodbyes to our mother and Meowth and leave with Lily to the lab. Here, the professor shows us that the Pokédex actually has a Pokemon in it called Rotom. This has a personality, that's for sure. Actually, it'll be living on the bottom screen of this entire game the whole time. You're not gonna see me talk about this like ever, but just know that whenever anything happens in this game, the Rotom is saying something in the bottom screen. But yes, an hour into our adventure, we're finally going on our own. Wow, that took a long time. Anyway, the trainer's school is our first destination. This is pretty much just a sequence of battles across this school until I realize what the rumors of this game were really about. See, before I actually played Ultra Sun and Moon, I was told that these were the hardest Pokemon games in the series, and I laughed because, well, I don't remember it being that way, and also X and Y were pretty easy, and Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire was pathetically easy. Surely Sun and Moon couldn't be that bad, right? Yeah, it really could be. So after we beat this insanely strong teacher, we meet with the captain of the island. These are basically the chaperones for our trials that we'll be facing. The first captain is, oh boy, Alima, but we're all done with the trainer's school now, and we can move on to apparently the biggest city in Alola already, Hau'oli City, which by the way is absolutely stunning at nighttime. I mean, look at all those stars. But in the city, we hang out with our friends a little bit and actually get access to clothes shopping, and I love this in Sun and Moon. I'm not sure if the originals or this game have different selection in clothing, but look, I always am a big fan of customization, especially in Pokemon. I really like being able to make my character look unique and stuff, so yeah, I really love this feature. If you're a girl, they actually gave you like lipstick and color contacts, so I mean, I don't really use those, but if you did want to do that, you have the option. Anyway, deeper into the city, we find Team Skull. This is the evil team of the region. After beating them, we meet up with Alima again, and he offers to battle us to see if we're ready for his trial. Now, originally I thought this was the trial because, well, I lost to him. Yeah, no, this is just the warm-up. Anyway, we eventually beat him and then move on to the next route, and there's actually a couple different things for us to do. There's a beach that has some Team Skull fights. There's a cemetery with some more battles battles and, you know, just cool atmosphere. I always love when a route is more than just point A to point B. Anyway, we eventually reach the trial site, and Alima is here to guide us through it. Now, for this trial, we have to defeat these Yungus who are hiding in these holes in the cave, but they seem to be quite elusive. Anyway, we actually get the help from Team Skull, even if it wasn't intentional, because we beat them and then they just stand in front of the other holes so we can fight the last Yungus. And in one of these fights, we evolved our Litten into a Toracat, one of my favorite mid-stage evolutions, and actually I love all of them in this game. One of the rare moments where I don't hate every second stage evolution in a game. But with this, we can move outside and fight the totem Pokemon Gumshoes. Now these Pokemon are kind of like the gym leaders, except not really. The way these fights work is very unique to Sun and Moon. So basically, there's a main Pokemon, and it has all increased stats because it has this special aura. But it can also call for help, which does get tricky sometimes because these Pokemon are not easy to take down. Fortunately for us though, our Toracat has Double Kick, which is super effective against normal types, making sure that this fight is not actually that hard, but I have a feeling that this won't last forever. But with this fight in the books, Alima comes to congratulate us, and we get the Z Crystal for normal types. As we're leaving, we encounter those weird alien people named Dulce and Zossie. They clearly are not from these parts and are just kind of watching us throughout our journey. Yeah, that's pretty much all we learn. They're also a part of this Ultra Recon squad, but there's not really any explanation as to what they do. All they seem to be doing right now is looking at the auras of these totem Pokemon and Z crystals. But as we leave, we realize that we need to go find Lily, and eventually we do, but she seems to have lost Nebby somewhere in this route. We go to help find it, and it's actually in this cave here, and the Ultra Recon squad has appeared once again, and we battle them this time. They're not a challenge or anything though. They explain a little bit more about their plan, objective, what they want to do. I actually don't really know. But we get Nebby back to Lily, and Hao comes to challenge us to a battle. It's pretty much the same fight as last time, except now he has a Noibat, but that doesn't really add too much challenge for us. Anyway, we can go back and actually fight the Kahuna of the island, because that's what you have to do when you complete the trials. Usually there would be more than just one, but I guess they only had one trial on this island. Anyway, we fight the Kahuna. He's not too bad, and we beat him on our first try. Yeah, if only that actually happened. Bro, I don't know. Every fight in this game, I feel like I've just struggled. Yeah, it's living up to the title of being the hardest Pokemon game for sure. But we beat him eventually and complete the grand trial of the island and get the Fighting Z Crystal. We also get introduced to one of the best mechanics introduced into Pokemon, Ride Pokemon. Now these Pokemon are going to replace HMs entirely, and this is absolutely necessary, and I really wonder why they chose this game to be the one that replaces HMs. Anyway, the first one we get is Tauros, and this replaces Rock Smash, but it also lets us get around a little bit faster, with the downside that we have to listen to this trash music. Oh, and I haven't even mentioned the music so far in this game. I remember for the past decade, I've said that Pokemon Sun and Moon's music is not that good, but maybe I was playing the game with my 3DS muted, because, I mean, have you listened to the music I've been playing in the background of this video? This game has a very good soundtrack so far. I just don't like the riding theme at all. It's really annoying. But now we can leave Mele Mele Island and talk to Lily, who asks us to join us on our adventure because although she's not a trainer, she wants to help get Nebby, or Cosmog is the name of the Pokemon, back to its home, which is apparently really far away from here. So we say yes, so we'll be seeing her on Akala Island, which is our next destination. On our way to leave, we find Black Oak. I guess this is kind of like a play that this is a regional variant of Oak. In all seriousness, this is just Professor Oak's cousin who lives in Alola, but truthfully, he's not that important to the journey, so I mean, yeah. So this segment is really cool. We get to surf on this Mantine, and honestly, this looks and feels really cool. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just a mini game, and they could have just sent us to the next island on a boat, but I think this is pretty sick anyway. So Hao and I make a it to the island with Mantine surfing, and everyone else gets to take a boat. Honestly, I don't know who got it better. Anyway, the trial captain Malo and the kahuna Olivia greet us, and they seem to be pretty nice people. But this is Heihei City, and there's actually not that much for us to do here, so we can just move on to the next town called Panolia. Now here we find Hao, and he challenges us to a battle where he has actually changed up his team quite a bit. His Pichu evolved into a Pikachu, his Rowlet evolved into a Dartrix, and he even has an Eevee now too. Fortunately for us, we still didn't lose to him, but I mean, you know what? Maybe he'll be a good trainer one day, because he's got a great setup right now. Around the block, we actually see Malo, and apparently she's some sort of rancher, and she explains to us that the Moo Moo milk from Panolia Ranch is the best. It's so rich and creamy when you use it in white sauce and other things. Anyway, we get a new ride Pokemon, Stoutland. This guy can smell stuff. Yeah, I actually don't know how to use him. You will not be seeing Stoutland much at all in this playthrough, I'm sorry. Up ahead, we encounter a new Team Skull member, Gladion. Wait, is it Gladion? Well, this guy definitely seems to be unique, and he also uses pretty cool Pokemon like Zorua and Type Null. We do end up beating him though, and some Team Skull members come and kinda just tear him down. I mean, they call him homeless. They said he's not really a part of Team Skull. He's just hired for some extra muscle. Like, damn, they really tore into this guy. But up ahead, we meet Lana, and she is the next trial captain. In this trial, we have to use Lapras as a ride Pokemon to swim across this water and try to get some Pokemon to draw out the totem Pokemon. This is much easier said than done. Now, there are some fights here in the water, and these are actually pretty hard, but this is nothing compared to what we're going to experience a little bit later. Now, you don't have to defeat every Pokemon here to make it to the totem, but let's just say if you can't beat these little fights here, you don't have a chance against the totem Pokemon. This level 20 Araquanid took so long to grind up for because I didn't really have much of a team and my type advantages were, well, not great. This little section of clips you're seeing in this video is only a fraction of the pain I had to go through. This is the hardest Pokemon game I have ever played. Now, if you picked Rowlet, I'm sure you did not struggle much with this fight. After all, it's very weak to grass and flying type moves, but yeah, we had to evolve our Pichu into a Pikachu. Then we had to catch some extra Pokemon because just 2 wasn't working. Look, we had like 5 Pokemon on my team. We didn't end up keeping all of them, but we did keep Picky Peck though, because I don't know, I kind of like him. Anyway, after way too long of grinding and fighting this boss over and over and over again, we figured out a way to beat it, and we completed the trial and got the Water Z Crystal. When we leave, we find the Ultra Recon Squad again, which we do battle and defeat, and up ahead we find Team Skull members trying to steal this Drifloon, but we stop them with this girl we met named Hapu. And with that, we can move into the Royal Avenue. And when we go inside the building, we meet someone called the Masked Royal, who I know is Professor Kukui, but I can't prove it. Also, Hao and Gladion are here for some reason. But when we finish up with our battle, we meet the next trial captain, oh boy, Kiawe? That's gotta be right. And he basically just says to meet us on the next route and bring our strongest team. So that's exactly what we do. We end up climbing this volcano thing and then meeting Kiawe on the top. For our trial, we have to play a little game where we have to identify the difference between these Alolan Marowak's dance moves. After we get through these Marowak, we have to fight this hiker guy who's, I guess, Kiawe's assistant or something? I don't know, he just kind of hangs around here. And then finally, we fight the totem Pokemon, Bigger Marowak. And despite us losing to most bosses the first time, we actually beat this in one shot, so that's pretty cool. After the fight, Kiawe gives us the Z power for fire type moves and gives us Charizard as a ride Pokemon, replacing HM Fly. After going down the mountain, we find the Ultra Recon Squad again, and they ask us if we're fully able to control Aura. Obviously, we know we can, so we say yes, and they tell us that they are from a world that I guess used to have a lot of light in it, but now it's dark. I don't really know what they're talking about, but they also say they're gonna get help from a scientist who's well educated in the ways of Pokemon, and then they leave. Up ahead, we meet an Alolan Vulpix who is under the care of these people here, and I knew from this moment I wanted an Alolan Vulpix, but we can't get one right now, so just keep that in mind. But up ahead, we meet Colress from Black and White 2. That is a throwback. And just like his first appearance, he says a lot of words words that don't really mean anything. But after him, we see Hao, and he tells us about something called the Festival Plaza, which is like the communications features area of the game. I'm playing this on emulator. I can't really get much use out of this, so I won't be talking about it. If this was a cool thing in 2016 or whenever this game came out, let me know, because I can't use this. After this, we meet up with Gladion. Actually, no we don't. He tells us to get out of his hotel room. That's all he says, literally. Outside, we see this golfer guy who explains that just getting the ball in the hole is fun because it's so difficult. And then we see another golfer taking practice shots in a parking lot, and she says that the swing is all in the hips. I'll put my hips into it when I take you on. Let's just go to the next trial site. Alright, here in the lush jungle, we meet up with Malo, and her trial is pretty simple. All we have to do is collect some ingredients to make a soup and then draw out the totem Pokemon. After getting the ingredients and looking at some Sudowoodos, we eventually lure out Lurantis with this strange soup Malo made. This fight is not hard at all. In fact, we one-shot it when using a Z move for the first time. Oh, and the other captains are here as well, except one part they were talking about how good of a trainer we were, and Kawaii said, oh, his Marowak didn't stand a chance, which was true. And then Lana was like, oh yeah, neither did the Araquanid. Buddy, I didn't stand a chance. Well, anyway, we head back into town and we meet up with Professor Kukui, Lily, and Professor Burnett, Kukui's wife. She tells us all about these things called Ultra Wormholes, which Ultra Beasts come out of. Now, these Ultra Beasts are some strange Pokemon from different worlds, and there's not much known about them since most are just old legends about how they invaded Alola one day. But after explaining this to us, Lily says that Professor Burnett actually is like a real mother to her because 3 months ago, she was trying to learn more about Cosmog, but she got lost, and then the professors took her in. It's clear that Lily doesn't really have a great relationship with her mother. But with this little conversation complete, we go to buy some new drip, then we head to the Diglett Tunnel, where we meet these members of the Aether Foundation. Apparently, these guys are working to support Pokemon conservation. We also see Olivia, and of course we do need to fight her, but now is not the time. First, we gotta go through this tunnel and to Coney City. When we do leave the tunnel, we find an old friend named Looker from, well, I don't even know how many Pokemon games at this point. But just around the corner is Coney City, and I absolutely love this place. They also had a clothes shop here, and I know I just changed my outfit, but I kind of wanted to change it again because I really liked the selection here. And while I was at it, I ended up getting a haircut too because, I don't know, I just wanted to really change things up. But after we get our new look and explore some more shops, it's time to go face Olivia. But right before we can go to her trial, we have to battle Team Skull Admin Plumeria, who is pretty cool. But once again, we're stopped by Professor Burnett this time, who brings us Lily, who I guess got lost. Then Burnett's like, I gotta go watch a Masked Royale match, so I'm really thinking this guy is Professor Kukui, bro. I can't prove it, but I have a feeling. Well, anyway, it's time to fight the Island Kahuna, Olivia. Yeah, we lost. I mean, she's a rock-type trainer, and all 3 of my Pokemon are weak to rock, so can you really blame me? But then I looked at the level of my Torracat and realized if I just grinded for a little bit, I could have my Incineroar, and that's exactly what I did. And with this absolute unit on our team, we were able to take down Olivia decisively. After the fight, Olivia congratulates us with the Rock Z power, and we complete the grand trial. Now that we're done with this island, we hear word that we've been invited to some place called the Aether Paradise, and we meet with this guy called Faba, who is obviously not a great person. I don't know who they're trying to fool here, but yeah, this guy is very suspicious. Anyway, the Aether Paradise is a floating artificial island where the Aether Foundation does research and preserves Pokemon. So we arrive on the island with Hao, and we're introduced to a woman named Wick, who is discernibly nicer than Faba, which is good. And she explains all the great things that the Aether Foundation does, and honestly, they seem like a really nice organization. But after exploring for a bit, we finally meet the president of the Aether Foundation, Lusamine. She seems like a very nice woman, generally, but after she gives her introduction and talks with Hao about how his style is not great, an Ultra Wormhole appears out of nowhere, and an Ultra Beast pops out. So we end up fighting this thing and beating it, and afterwards Lusamine says that she needs that Pokemon, like she still needs it. Perhaps she has some previous connection to it. They definitely won't just completely forget this plot point. Anyway, the Ultra Recon Squad pulls up and tells us exactly exactly what happened, which we basically already knew. But with that, our tour of the Aether Foundation is over, and after Wick gives us some parting gifts, we move on to the next island, Ula Ula. The first city we arrive in is Malie City, and this is a beautiful city. Honestly, one of my favorite, if not my favorite, in Pokemon. Not to mention, the music is so good. When we arrive though, Hao wants to have a little battle, and he still has a Dartrix, but at least he evolved his Eevee into a Vaporeon. He also got himself an Alolan Raichu finally, after evolving his Pikachu. I think we're gonna get ours very soon as well. And finally, he has a Tauros now. I don't know why he chose a Tauros, but I mean, still pretty good of a Pokemon. Much like every other battle, we don't really struggle too much and defeat him on our first try. Now we gotta head to the Malie Garden to tell the professor what happened at the Aether Foundation. Oh, and while we were here, our Trumbeak evolved into a Toucanon, and this is one of my favorite bird Pokemon in the games. Outside, we meet up with Lily once again, and she asks us how the president of the Aether Foundation was. Kinda suspicious. But she asks us to take her to the ruins here on Ula Ula Island, and I mean, yeah, we're gonna do that, but first, there's a lot to do in this city. We check out the clothes store, check out a restaurant, and there's actually a Cantonian gym here, which is strangely similar to Surge's gym from Vermilion City. I'm not gonna lie, this is like the biggest tourist trap ever. You gotta pay $1,000 to get in here, and you don't really get much for beating the gym in the first place. And the last thing for us to do in this city is check out this library with Lily. Apparently she wants to read some super old book. Also, Black Oak is here. While Lily is looking for a very important book to her, this girl named Acerola pulls up and shows her the book, and apparently she's some sort of princess? I mean, not anymore, but her dad used to be the ruler of Alola, which is kinda awesome. Anyway, after spending way too long in this city, we can go to the next trial, which we have to take a bus to. We go up the mountain with Kukui and meet this guy named Mullane, who is running this observatory where the trial is gonna take place. He's not the trial captain though, that's someone else. He also totally leaks that Kukui is the Master Royal. I knew it the whole time. After we talk to him, he gives us the Steel Z-Power, and then we go inside the observatory where we can start the trial with this kid named Sophocles. Well, technically we have to do a trial before the trial, which involves us finding these charger bugs, which are all over the observatory area. Once we get that, we can actually start the trial, which involves this slide puzzle game where we have to line up these charger bugs to try and draw out enough power to get the totem Pokemon to show up. After some trial and error, we summon the totem Pokemon Togedemaru? Togedemaru? I'm gonna get flamed in the comments, aren't I? Anyway, this is a really easy fight, and we beat it with no problem, finishing the first trial of Ula Ula Island. After getting the electric type Z Crystal, we go back to Malie City and into the garden, where apparently Team Skull is terrorizing the place. We finally end up meeting the leader of Team Skull, Guzma, who has a pretty cool battle theme, but we defeat him with no problem. With that, we can head on to our next trial. On the way, we meet this girl Hapu again, who gives us Mudsdale as a ride Pokemon, which is cool because it gets us over these bumps on the floor. I don't know what HM this replaces, but I mean, it's cool, I guess. We also meet Gladion, who actually talks to us this time and explains that we really have to make sure that Cosmog is safe, because if not, something terrible could happen. But right after this, we make it to Tapu Village, where we meet the Ultra Recon Squad again. But this time they actually have something important to tell us. There's this Pokemon called Necrozma, who is very angry, and while they have been able to keep him contained in their homeland, well, it's just too strong for them, so they came to Alola to try to look for some answers. I have a feeling that we're gonna be that very answer, aren't we? Anyway, here in Tapu Village, we can finally catch that coveted Alolan Vulpix that we've been waiting for and get our 4th party member. With this, we're ready to take on the next trial, which is run by Acerola. She explains that we have to go into this abandoned supermarket and take some pictures of ghost-type Pokemon. And of course, eventually we can find the totem Pokemon and defeat that. After exploring this very creepy place, we find the totem Pokemon Mimikyu. And this is a very cool Pokemon. Its whole gimmick is that it hides under this Pikachu costume because it's insecure or something. In battle, it's super strong too because it's a ghost fairy type, which is quite a strong combination. And also, for the first hit that it takes, it will take no damage because the disguise will take the hit for it. This battle was trials, not much of a challenge though, because our Incineroar is very strong. So we complete the trial, get the ghost type Z power, and we're on to the next. But when we leave, we learn that Team Skull has taken some children's Pokemon, and that is just not okay. So once we defeat them, they say, you're gonna have to come to our turf to get the Pokemon back, which is Po Town. Now Po Town is pretty far away, and we have to go over water to find it. So we go over to the coast and find Grimsley from Pokemon Black and White. He gives us this new ride Pokemon, Sharpedo, which will allow us to clear the way through these rocks and make our way into Po Town. But in one of the battles here, we evolved our Pikachu into an Alolan Raichu, and finally, wow, this Pokemon is beautiful. Not to mention, it's got a pretty strong moveset too. It's a Psychic Electric type. Now Po Town is still kind of far away. We gotta get over the ocean and through this forest area. We also catch a glimpse of this sick ruins place, which I don't think ever gets used in Ultra Sun, but let me know because I don't remember. It might be something that gets used in like the post game or in Ultra Moon. But eventually we make it to Po Town, and this place is quite dreary. Apparently Team Skull has their own gated community here, which is of course locked off to the public, but this weird old dude says that he'll let us in, and if we don't make it, that our remains at least get back home. Yeah, that's a little unsettling. Inside, it took quite a while for us to get through, but there's a lot of Team Skull battles, and they even have a Pokemon Center where you have to pay to get your Pokemon healed. After we get past these roadblocks, we encounter a Team Skull mansion where we have to go through all these rooms, find some passwords, and eventually we reach Guzma. This guy is not a very good trainer, honestly. His team just gets completely wiped by my Incineroar. Once we beat him, we get the Pokemon back, and we also get the bug type Z Crystal, but yeah, we're never gonna use that. When we leave the mansion, we see this old dude come out and heal our Pokemon and send us on our way, but not before Acerola pulls up and says that this guy's name is Nanu and her uncle. Apparently this guy just keeps watch over Team Skull. But with that done, we can go back to the Aether House, and unfortunately Lily and Cosmog were kidnapped by Team Skull while we were gone. Gladion hears about this and seems very upset, and also reveals that he knows who Lily is. He takes out his anger on us in a battle, and obviously he wants to help Lily and Cosmog, so he invites us to go save them. But right as we're about to leave, we get stopped by Nanu, and he reveals that he's the Island Kahuna, so he asks us to battle him, and that we do. Fortunately, his team is not that great, and we complete the grand trial, getting the Dark type Z Crystal. And with that, we head to the Aether Foundation to save Lily. This time around, the Aether Foundation is anything but nice to us, and they will battle us at every turn. As we explore the place, we learn that the Aether Foundation is not as nice as they let on, and they do a lot of experimenting in their basement. Even Type Null, the Pokemon that Gladion uses, is not a normal Pokemon, and it was genetically created to fight Ultra Beasts. And while we're down here, our Vulpix evolves into a Alolan Ninetales, so we are looking very strong at this point in the game. Our next objective is to find Lily and Cosmog, but it seems that everyone in the Aether Foundation is against us, so we have to fight against Faba, then we have to fight against a bunch of Team Skull guys, including Guzma, then we have to fight the Ultra Recon Squad, and finally we reach Lusamine. We find her having an argument with Lily, and apparently she's Lily's mother, which is honestly pretty predictable since she didn't seem to like her that much. Lusamine then moves up to her room where we follow her, and Gladion appears, also making it clear that he is her son. Again, not really that hard to guess based on, you know, how he looks. But we get a big lore drop here, and apparently the reason why Lusamine is so obsessed with Ultra Beasts and wormholes is because she wants to save the world or something. And the reason she feels that way is because her husband, and Lily and Gladion's father, was taken in and apparently killed by an Ultra wormhole. So the reason that she wants Cosmog is because it has the power to create these wormholes. And well, she's successful in her plan. She opens up a wormhole, but before she goes in, she decides to battle us. And I guess it's really just a humiliation ritual because I lost and it didn't actually matter. This is a scripted fight that even if you lose, the story will continue as normal. And with that, Lusamine and Guzma go into the wormhole, never to be seen again. Well, as far as we know, we actually do want to save them, but we can't do anything right now. We end up leaving the building and talking to Lily outside, and she changed her clothes and explains that she's trying to make herself a little bit more stronger and become more confident, which is great because to be honest, she's kind of been dead weight this whole time. We also learn that it might be possible to get into the Ultra Wormhole world if we can summon the legendary Pokemon using the Sun and Moon flutes. But for now, we're gonna continue with our adventure and head to Pony Island with Lily. Also, of course, while we're here, hopefully we can find a way to get into the Ultra Wormholes again. Our first stop is here in Seafolk Village, and there's a couple things for us to do. There is a trial captain here, Mina, but it's not time for us to do that quite yet. We want to meet the kahuna of the island and maybe figure out how we can save Lily's mother. Also, if you look around, you can find a lady who wants to see an Alolan Raichu, and of course we have one, so we show her and she gives us its Z Crystal that unlocks its special move. But once we finish up in this city, we gotta move on to the next route to find Hapu because Mina said that she might know something about the kahuna. We eventually find her and she tells us about some ruins that are important, I guess. We also get Machamp as a ride Pokemon, which replaces HM Strength. Inside the ruins, we take out Cosmog, which is currently sleeping, and it also changed form into this cocoon-like thing. In this room, we see Hapu doing some sort of ritual and getting a sparkling stone, and she reveals that she is the kahuna of this island. Hapu tells us that we need to get the Sun Flute to play with our Moon Flute that we already have, and to get it, we have to go to Executor Island. We head back to Seafolk Village and head for the island, although we leave Lily behind because apparently she's not strong enough to come, which is kinda sad. I feel like she would have been fine. There isn't really much to do on this island. We just see some Alolan Executors, which do look kinda funny, and then we get the Sun Flute and then come back. When we get back, we learn that in order to use these flutes, we have to play them at an altar, which is deep in the vast Pony Canyon. So we head there and we encounter some Team Skull members, we beat them, and we get the Poison Z Crystal. This canyon is quite the elaborate dungeon, and while it's not a victory road per se, it definitely feels like one. About halfway through, Lily makes her way with us and finds herself having to cross this very dangerous bridge, not dissimilar to the one that we almost died on earlier in the game. Regardless, there are a lot of strong trainers in this dungeon, and I had a lot of grinding to do. But we make it to the end, and this turns out to be some sort of a trial site. As we go through it, we fight two Pokemon, and then eventually we're attacked by the totem Pokemon Kamao. And this thing is a pretty strong Pokemon in general, but we still first tried the boss. It's not like it's much of a challenge at this point. Our team is very strong. When we defeat it, we get the Dragon-type Z Crystal, and we leave the cave. Hapu and Lily catch up to us, and she explains that this trial was the first ever in the Alola region, and she congratulates us. But now we've made it to this altar, and we have to play these flutes to summon the legendary Pokemon, and, well, that's exactly what happens. Playing the flutes allows Nebby to transform into Solgaleo, which is a crazy Pokemon. But before we can do anything with it, we see Guzma fall out of the sky, followed up by Lusamine. And right after that, we see a huge Pokemon come out of the Ultra Wormhole, and this is Necrozma. It ends up fusing with Solgaleo and becoming this insane beast. This causes many Ultra Wormholes to pop up, and Ultra Beasts flow into the Alola region. And so we have a battle with Necrozma, and honestly, it's not very difficult at all. But let's just say this isn't the last we'll see of this Pokemon. When we defeat it, it actually just causes darkness to engulf all of Alola, and then it runs away. Fortunately, the Ultra Recon Squad pulls up and tells us exactly what we need to do to find it. They introduce us to Ultra Warp Riding, where we can ride on Lunala, which is the other legendary Pokemon, and find our way into a white warp hole where we can find Necrozma. But there's actually a lot more to these wormholes. This kind of acts how the soaring system worked in Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, where you can find legendary Pokemon and other Pokemon along the way too. In this case, while I was learning the controls and kind of messing up honestly, I found a shiny Magcargo on my first try. Now I do want to note that there is an increased chance to find shinies in Ultra Warp Holes, but this is like really rare still because I didn't even go that far into the Ultra Warp Hole, which increases your shiny odds. This is still like a 1 to 3% chance. Unfortunately, I don't really care about Magcargo, so I won't be using it much at all. But after struggling with the controls on this emulator, we finally made it to where we need to go, the Ultra Recon Squad's homeland. Now, here is where Necrozma is staying, and let's just say that I had no clue what I was in store for. Now, for a long time, I knew that Ultra Sun and Moon were considered very hard Pokemon games, some people saying the hardest Pokemon games of all time, and I never understood why. I remember when I was a kid, they were pretty hard, but I didn't even remember the game all that well. Well, this is the reason why people remember it so difficult. This fight, out of all the games I've ever played, this is the only time that I've ever considered a boss harder than what I could actually complete. Ultra Necrozma is the hardest boss in Pokemon, hands down. There is no amount of training that I think I could have done within a reasonable amount of time to defeat this monster. It one-shot every single one of my Pokemon without fail. I spent so long trying to figure out how I could beat this thing, but eventually I figured out a way. If I went back and caught a Mimikyu and I taught it Toxic, it could take a hit with its disguise ability and it could get Toxic off on Ultra Necrozma and I could just whittle it down after a few turns. And so yes, that is what I did. I went to go get a Mimikyu. I also got its exclusive Z Crystal, which you'll see is very, very funny. Then I went back to Necrozma and completed the plan and defeated it successfully. Now, with all that complete, we come back to our homeland in Alola. Now, apparently, Lusamine and Guzma were humbled after their encounter in the Ultra Wormhole, which is kind of funny. And this is the only time that I'm going to reference the original Sun and Moon games from my memory. I might talk about them a little bit later, but I remember there was a whole sequence where Lusamine and Guzma were in the Ultra Wormhole and we had to go in with them, and then Lusamine fused with an Ultra Beast, and then we had to fight her. Like, that whole section was completely cut out, and I'm so upset about that, actually. I feel like that was such a major plot point, and to just remove it makes Lusamine's character development feel random and like it wasn't even deserved. And honestly, that's really the last we'll see of Lusamine for the rest of the game, which is kinda sad, actually. Well, anyway, it's time to finish our last trial with Mina. We have to battle with her first, and once we defeat her, she gives us this. All right, man, they had to know what they were doing. This is not a flower petal. Guys, come on, look at her face. Anyway, our trial is actually to defeat all of the trial captains around the Alola region. So that's what we do. One by one, we find them, except, well, one of them we don't fight technically. We either fight Lana or Malo, depending on the version you're playing. But regardless, it doesn't take that long, and you could just teleport after every fight to the next location, which is very convenient. But once all of these battles are complete, we head back to Mina and make this rainbow flower that summons the totem Pokemon, Ribombee. And I thought this was going to be easy. I mean, look, Incineroar has a type advantage against it, right? Well, let's just say it was stronger than I expected. I didn't actually lose the battle, but I came pretty close to it. But with this trial complete, we get the Fairy-type Z Crystal, and we've officially completed all of the trials in Alola, leaving just one fight left against the Kahuna. So we head to Executor Island to find Hapu, and surprisingly, she was not that difficult of a fight. We ended up beating her in one try, getting the Ground-type Z Crystal, and we've completed the final grand trial. Now, technically, we can head straight for the Elite Four, but first, I wanted to catch our final team member because, I don't know, 5 doesn't seem right. I was really set on getting that Kamo-O from that trial, so I went back and I caught myself one and trained it up pretty fast. Now, we can go back to Tapu Village and head for the Elite Four. When we arrive, we see Gladion coming to thank us for what we did for Lily and for Lusamine. In thanks, he gives us a great battle. But this time, his type Null has actually evolved into a Silvally, which is a pretty cool Pokemon, actually. Now with this, we can head into Victory Road, and this is a great place to train up our team because we do have quite a bit of level disparities. After I did this, I noticed I had quite a bit of money, so I went back to Howley City, which is a throwback at this point, and I went to this shopping mall that I completely missed when I went through the city the first time. There's a really nice clothing store, and it has some super luxury items, that's for sure. I just figured we'd been wearing the same clothes for a while, and I wanted to change into something a little bit more flashy for the Elite Four. With our all-white fit on, we make it through Victory Road, and at the top of this mountain, we encounter Necrozma again. Now, this thing is catchable this time, and it has a boosted catch rate, so that's what we did. We also get the ability to fuse it with Solgaleo or Lunala if we wanted to. I won't be using Necrozma, but hey, if you wanted to, the option's there. And at the top of this huge mountain, we finally reached the Elite Four. Honestly, I think this is one of my best teams that I've ever put together in the
these playthroughs, and I'm really excited for this Elite Four. First up is the Steel type Elite Four member, Mullane, who is making his first appearance as a trainer. Going into this fight, I was pretty confident because Incineroar is a fire type after all, and honestly, I think he did a really good job in this fight. I did try to diversify the Pokemon that I used, but to be honest, I think it just only made things harder for myself, and I probably should have let Incineroar just cook. Regardless, we do manage to take down Mullane with little issue. Next up is Olivia, and to be honest, I think this is probably going to be our hardest fight. Our team is notoriously weak against rock-type Pokemon, and her team is pretty well built. Not gonna lie, I lost this fight on my first attempt. I just did not stand a chance, and I didn't have a proper game plan going in, so let's try that again. This time, I really tried to use my Pokemon a little bit more smartly, but we barely beat her anyway, so I don't know. I'm just happy that this fight is over with. Shout out to Olivia though, because that was quite a difficult battle. Next up is Acerola, the Ghost type Elite Four member. How do I put this? Incineroar swept her entire team. I mean, it's not even like she had a particularly bad team, it's just Incineroar is kinda great against Ghost types. After all, its signature move, Darkest Lariat, is Dark type, and that is super effective against Ghost types. And finally, the last member of the Elite Four is Kahili, and she uses Flying type Pokemon. And although her team is built quite well and has a lot of coverage, our Alolan Raichu is just really strong against her whole team. And with that, we complete the Elite Four, but that's not the last thing. We still have one more fight before we can become the champion. Now, if you're playing the original Sun and Moon, you would not have the same experience as this game, because in the originals you would fight the Professor, and he was pretty strong, but in Ultra Sun and Moon, you fight Hau. Now, I know Hau might get a lot of hate for being kind of a boring champion fight, but I actually really like his team composition, especially considering we've seen him grow alongside us, and we know that his team is at its max strength, as ours is as well. I guess the downside is we don't really get much of a surprise team that we have to go against, but I still think there is a really nice atmosphere about this fight. As for the challenge, it's not necessarily the hardest fight ever, especially because we knew what we were getting into. Instead, we completely destroyed his team and, well, ended it off with a bang using Mimikyu's interesting Z power. And with that fight in the books, we officially become Alola's first champion. Oh yeah, I don't think I ever mentioned it. Alola doesn't actually have an Elite Four or a champion until we start our journey. So yeah, we're considered the inaugural champion. Then we get a very nice end credit sequence. I think this is one of the most elaborate credits we've ever gotten Pokemon. We see a lot of our favorite characters get their stories tied up. Team Skull has disbanded. Gladion decides to take a little vacation to Kanto and even gets waved goodbye by Lusamine. And we see that Colress is even working at the Aether Foundation now. Oh, and we also see Zygarde in a cave for some reason. I guess we can go get that in the post game if you want. Actually, you know what? We're not gonna get Zygarde, but I will play the post game. So after starting back in our house and talking with our mom and Hau, we get recruited by the Ultra Recon Squad to go handle some situations with the residual Ultra Beasts that came into the Alola region when all those wormholes appeared. So we go with them to Pony Island to check out the situation. Oh, and Wick is here and she offers us Type Null, which is a pretty cool Pokemon. I won't be using it, but hey, for those who do like Type Null, you get them for free. But yeah, all we really have to do here is defeat a few Ultra Beasts and the day is actually done. But of course, that's not the end of the post game. In fact, this is only the beginning. First, we have to help Sophocles with some sort of issue with the Festival Plaza getting taken over by Team Rainbow Rocket. So we do these little gimmicky battles and get them out of here. After this, we see a news broadcast where Lusamine is addressing the issues in the Alola region with Ultra Beasts and the Ultra Wormholes, and then suddenly Team Rainbow Rocket supposedly attacks them. Of course, we have to go check out what's going on, so we head to the Aether Foundation, and apparently, yeah, Team Rainbow Rocket has taken over the place. Of course, Faba has decided to cooperate with Team Rainbow Rocket and sell them out. So we end up battling him alongside Lily, who is actually battling with us for the first time ever, and that's pretty cool. She doesn't really do much besides take a bunch of hits. Well, I guess that's better
better than nothing. Well, anyway, we beat them and then go inside this new Rainbow Rocket Mansion place. And it's been completely taken over from the inside out. There are a bunch of Team Rocket grunts that we have to defeat, but we do get some help from Guzma, who is now not much of a bad guy. This is where the majority of the post-game is going to take place, and it's just a lot of rooms with puzzles and grunts that reference old dungeons from older Pokemon games. Honestly, I wasn't the biggest fan of this, except at the end of these dungeon parts, we do get a really cool sequence where we encounter the old team leaders from the other games. And these guys are all coming from worlds where they succeeded with their plan, likely because they didn't have someone to stop them. These battles with these leaders are generally very tough because they always have the signature legendary from their game on their team. So Archie has Kyogre, and of course Maxie has Groudon. Deeper in the mansion, we find Cyrus, who uses Dialga, and we even fight Lysander, who has a Mega Gyarados. I didn't even know Mega Evolutions were in this game, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, I'm gonna be honest, I lost a lot to these guys. Like, they are very strong. Fortunately, Mimikyu is the MVP of this post game because it seems whenever I'm in a dire situation, I can use its Z move and make it out pretty fine. Also, Kamo is such a fraud. I don't care how high its stats are, it just sucks. Like, I don't know why. I feel like you have to use this thing with such a specific moveset or else it just sucks. I don't know. Maybe I'm the bad one, but I don't like using it. Once we defeat this group of 4, we actually face Getsis, who of course has a very strong team and uses Zekrom, but even if we do beat him, he still threatens Lily's life. Fortunately though, Colress comes and saves us by sending him back to whatever world he's from, and now we can go fight the boss, and as you might expect, yes, it's Giovanni. His team is quite strong, and when I say that, I mean like he literally has the strongest Pokemon of all time on his team. Yeah, Giovanni uses a Mega Mewtwo X, not exactly something that I could prepare for, but somehow, against all odds, Mimikyu just ignores the godlike power of Mewtwo and completely destroys it with its Z move. And yes, with that is the end of the post game that I'll be playing. There is a couple other things that you can do. I think there's some scenes with Looker and stuff, but really I'm not trying to do all that. This Rainbow Rocket stuff was the main post game. So yeah, with that, my journey of Ultra Sun and Moon is now complete. Going into Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon, I was anything but optimistic. In fact, I had brought almost 10 years of hate into my playthrough, bearing almost no positive memories of Alola at all. After all, it removed the 8 gym system and even replaced the awesome Mega Evolutions with lame Z moves. So was I right all along? Probably not. I won't lie, these games are far from perfect. The pacing especially is notoriously strange compared to some other entries in the series. This is one of the most dialogue heavy Pokemon games ever, and you can absolutely feel it. I don't really mind when there's a lot of exposition or anything because I like when Pokemon has a decent story. The main issue I had was the beginning of the game taking about 2 hours to get going. There is no reason why it should take this long for me to be let free to do my own thing. I understand that they wanted to go into depth with certain plot points, but I just don't think it should have taken this long. The other main critique that people have of these games are the very strange decisions made in storytelling, especially comparing them to the original Sun and Moon games. I believe I briefly mentioned this earlier, but there was a whole section of the game cut out with Lusamine merging with an Ultra Beast, and instead of this, we got a bunch of stuff with Necrozma, which I guess was cool, but it really was more impactful and memorable when the climax of the game involved a character that had already built up their story. Instead, Lusamine's character arc is kind of glossed over as she goes into hyperspace with Guzma and then suddenly comes out a completely changed woman. Anyway, I do want to talk about Necrozma a bit because it felt very out of place sometimes. You end up encountering this guy a lot, but really the only time it mattered was the fight. and you know exactly what I'm talking about. Ultra Necrozma is a laughably overpowered boss. See, in gaming you often will see games that intentionally make their bosses really hard. It's a point of the game. Some of the most popular games that do this are Elden Ring and Hollow Knight Silksong. But see, they tend to do this in a very particular way. Since these games are largely skill-based, assuming you're playing at a normal pace, these bosses are almost entirely about improving as a player. See, for a very casual game like Pokemon though, a super boss doesn't always have this in mind, nor does it really even work as a concept. While Pokemon is certainly skill-based, it's one of the most competitive games in the world after all, we have to consider that this is not an ordinary competitive fight. This is an overpowered super boss. We can't just get good, besides maybe training or catching different party members. I thought I was pretty fairly leveled in my fight against Ultra Necrozma, and for every single one of my team members to get one shot like that is simply just bad boss design in my opinion. I literally had to cheese this boss with Mimikyu Toxic in order to win. Now, I want to be clear, I'm just talking about the difficulty of this boss fight, not the entire game. That, on the other hand, is one of my favorite parts about the adventure. Most of the game, with the exception of Ultra Necrozma and maybe the Araquanid fight if you chose Incineroar, is challenging but also well balanced. Alola gives you a very solid selection of Pokemon to use, which is great when it comes to building a team to handle some of these harder fights. I think what makes RPG battles memorable has a lot to do with how much emotional investment we put into them. You don't want these fights to be so easy that you forget them instantly, but you also don't want to make them so unfair that the only reason you remember them is out of dislike for their design. Ultra Sun and Moon has some really memorable fights, like the one with Mimikyu in the abandoned supermarket or the dancing Marowak on top of the mountain. It's also pretty funny to see some of the random trainers in the region being genuine threats if you aren't fully paying attention. Coming off the back of two of the easiest Pokemon games in history, this is truly an improvement. Now, I want to talk about the atmosphere of Alola. As you could probably assume, Alola is based on Hawaii. Initially, you might think this would be bland and completely tropical and beachy all around, but that is not actually the case. Due to the unique geolocation and volcanic aspect of the islands, there are a vast amount of climates within them. In the game, we see these various climates implemented all over, with some areas being tropical, yes, but some deserty and even super mountainous. But the land isn't the only thing that's diverse, the people are too. And yes, Alola captures that aspect very well with its vast assortment of different cultures in the cities and even races of people. And of course, the atmosphere wouldn't be complete without the music, which I think is so incredibly underrated. I'm on record for hating so hard on the Sun and Moon soundtrack, and I don't even know why. Tracks like Howley City, Lily's Theme, and Malier City are so relaxing, and I love putting them on in the background while I work. While I will admit, the battle themes are not as good as previous games, in fact, I'd actually say these are some of the worst, there are still some really good tracks like Gladion's theme. Oh, and for the post-game stuff, it is a bit of a Spider-Man No Way Home fan service nostalgia farming situation, but I think it's fine. The Rainbow Rocket stuff isn't the only part of the post-game, and I'm sure you could put hours exploring for shinies and Ultra Beasts in the Ultra Wormholes anyway. But I don't know about the original Sun and Moon games, that might be a valid criticism. So yeah, as you can see, I really only have positive things to say about the majority of this game. It may have removed the 8 gyms and Mega Evolution as the main battle gimmick of the game, and yeah, the pacing is kinda bad at times. But this is one of the most fun experiences I've had playing Pokemon ever. So is Pokemon Ultra Sun and Moon actually good? Yes. I think this is one of the most complete experiences in modern Pokemon. I don't think that this was some big step in the wrong direction like I thought it was. So with this game complete, the 3DS era of Pokemon is finished, and I think it went out with a bang. I know this era of Pokemon is super divisive because one group hates how it changed so much about the original formula, but another really loves it for how innovative it was. While the 3DS games are certainly not my favorites, I'd be lying if I said they weren't still super fun. Thank you so much for watching.